warm welcome to join us with this edition of 8 in English News, and I'm Abdul Ahad Mohammadi. Prominent Afghan opposition leaders said Friday they support possible U.S. brokered peace negotiations with Taliban, but want to be part of any talks. Leaders and members of National Front Party spoke as they returned from a conference in Berlin where they met with U.S. congressional leaders. They accused Karzai of negligence in hearing the opposition voice for solving the current crisis in the country. In Berlin, they supported a decentralization of power, saying that political system fatally concentrates decision-making in the president's hands. Taliban recently expressed interest in negotiations with the U.S. Every kind of change in the government system will result in collapse of the present system in the country, Second Vice President Mohammad Karim Khalili warned on Friday while addressing worshippers in Kabul. Khalili asked the opposition alliances to avoid participating in meetings that were not to the interest of the country. He also said that Taliban must accept the constitution and start peace dialogue to end the decade-long war. His comments came after Northern Alliance leaders held talks with 4 U.S. Congress members in Berlin suggesting a decentralization of power in the government. The price of opium in Afghanistan rose dramatically in 2011. A UN report released Thursday has found the 2011 Afghan Opium Survey, an annual report done by the UN Office on Drugs and Crime and the Ministry of Counter-Narcotics, found that opium trafficking in Afghanistan saw a 133% increase in value from 2010. Income from the drug amounted to over $1.4 billion, or 9% of the country's total GDP, according to the United Nations. Price began to go up in 2010 after the poppy crops was hit by a fungal disease. At least 6 militants were killed and 2 others were injured on Thursday when an unmanned U.S. drone fired missiles at a vehicle in Pakistan's North Waziristan. The strike took place in the Dakhil area, said officials, while confirming the strike. The identities of those killed were not immediately known. Sources from the area said that 2 huge explosions were heard, after which the vehicle was completely destroyed. The strike comes 2 days after a similar attack killed 4 militants in North Waziristan, marking the resumption of the unacknowledged U.S. drone campaign in Pakistan. Russia warned the West on Friday that new sanctions against Iran over its nuclear program will be seen by the world as a bid to change the Islamic Republic's regime. Deputy Foreign Minister Gennady Gitalov also said Moscow strongly disagreed with the West's approach to its other regional ally Syria and would use its position in the UN Security Council to avert foreign military intervention in both crises. His comments came as European governments moved closer to an agreement on an Iranian oil embargo that would give companies 6 months to phase out contracts with Iran. Meanwhile, the Obama administration has warned Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei through a secret channel of communication that closing the Strait of Hormuz is a red line that would provoke an American response. The New York Times reported, citing U.S. officials, Iran has threatened to close the strait. Iran has threatened to close the strait if West puts sanctions on its oil industry. Senior U.S. officials in the past have also warned that Iran would cross a red line if it made good on recent threats to close the strait, where about a fifth of the world's oil passes every day. Hundreds of Syrian and foreign activists traveling in convoy have been prevented from entering Syria to deliver aid supplies. A representative from the group said they would now stage a sit-in on the Turkish side of the border. Meanwhile, Arab League head Nabil al-Arabi has said that the organization will rethink its information to the strife-torn country next week. Opposition groups in Syria say 22 people were killed on Thursday. The UN estimates more than 5,000 have been killed since the unrest began in March. Myanmar's government signed a ceasefire with ethnic Karen rebels on Thursday to try to end one of the world's longest-running insurgencies, part of its efforts to resolve all conflicts with separatist groups. The government and the Karen National Union delegation agreed in principle to 11 points and signed 2 broad agreements to end hostilities between the military and the Karen National Liberation Army and start dialogue towards a political settlement to a 62-year conflict. The ceasefire could be a small step towards the lifting of 2 decades of sanctions imposed on Myanmar by the U.S. and the United States. And the last news, China successfully launched meteorological satellite Pyongyang second Friday from its southwestern Xizang Satellite Launching Center. Capable of providing continuous meteorological monitoring and sending maritime and water resources data, the satellite is expected to play an important role in weather forecasting and disaster reduction. Developed and produced by the Shanghai Academy of Spaceflight Technology, the orbiter will collect data for the China Meteorological Administration. The Long March 3A rocket that was used to carry the satellite into space is a product of China Academy of Launch Vehicle Technology. And that's all for now. Thanks for joining us.